Hello, everyone, and welcome to WIF's Laptop Cinema Club, the series where we bring you stimulating conversations with the people creating the media you love. I'm Ebony Adams, Manager of Public Programs, and I'm delighted today to welcome two of the women behind the gorgeous film Mothering Sunday, in which a maid living in post-World War I England secretly plans to meet with the man she loves before he leaves to marry another woman. Joining us to discuss the film is director Eva Husson. This dynamic multi-hyphenate began her career as an actor before writing and directing such films as Bang Gang, A Modern Love Story, and Girls of the Sun, a story about female freedom fighters. We also have the incredible Odessa Young joining us, who plays Jane Fairchild in Mothering Sunday. She's an exceptional actor and has starred in A Million Little Pieces, Assassination Nation, and Shirley. Last but not least, leading the conversation with Eva and Odessa will be writer, producer, and deputy awards and features editor of Variety, Jenelle Riley. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eva and Odessa, for being here and turning on your computers right on time. That was brilliant.
I was waiting with bated breath.
It's a job.
You both take directions so well.
They pay us the big bucks.
I would actually love to start at the beginning with Eva. I know this film is based on a novel by Graham Swift with the screenplay by Alice Birch, I believe. How did the story first find its way to you? Was it the novel, the screenplay, and what interested you in bringing it to the screen?
It was the novel that got to me first, and my agent sent it to me, and I was doing like a TV job where there was a lot of action and it was just very packed. And then suddenly I had this extremely delicate, sophisticated story about emotions and human beings, and it was, I needed that, I guess. It was just as simple as that. I had gone through some personal trauma, and it just resonated a lot. It sort of opened up a frequency in me. And I was really looking forward to reading the screenplay. And when the screenplay landed, it was as delicate as the novel. So it was an absolute surprise. And I don't know, sometimes it just feels right. And I think this profession is really hard for many, many reasons. And, most of the journey is going to be not easy. So if you feel connected to a project, it's much easier to eat the shit, So, very simply put, being very French right now, but yeah, it's just there were so many moments when, for example, I guess that comes from the acting side. I'm kind of hypersensitive, and I just slowed up with emotion. And there would be days, I was just rereading my diary yesterday for other reasons, and I just realized that there were days when I would just come home and cry at the end of the day, because there was so much about loss and emotions, and it's just not easy to go through this during a pandemic. So it just keeps you afloat when it feels so good.
Yeah. Odessa, for you, was it the novel or the screenplay? Which found its way to you first, and what attracted you to the role of Jane?
I hadn't heard of the novel before the screenplay came my way, and I was pretty blown away by it. And I read the screenplay and then really quickly, downloaded the Kindle version of the novel and read it all. But I think I have a very similar story to Eva, honestly. I think that, when I first read it, it was pre-pandemic, which is honestly shocking to remember, because my entire memory of this movie is filming in this weird time and dealing with all of these protocols. But I do remember that, the first time I read the movie was pre-pandemic, and I had similarly, I was on a TV job that wasn't, as emotional as things that I'm used to, as emotionally fulfilling. And I'd also had, an experience of grief and loss a couple of months before that was still pretty raw when I read it. And yeah, it just answered a lot of questions for me. It answered a lot of desires. And then, obviously the pandemic happened, and when we were meant to make the film, we couldn't make the film. And then by the time we finally made the film, kind of revisiting it, because truly I believed that everything had just completely died in the water. I was shocked that people were starting to make films again when that started happening again. And by the time I read it again during the pandemic, it was almost a little psychic in like the script is extremely prescient in quite spooky ways. And yeah, I just think it kind of hit all the right marks again.
I mean, Eva, for this film, you had to find a lead actress who could convey all these complex emotions and feelings and also essentially be in almost every scene in the film. It's obvious for me having seen the movie, but how did you know Odessa was the right actor for the role?
Because I tend to follow my gut feelings, and I had seen many young ladies where it was like, oh, there's this one good thing, but I'm not sure, they can carry the film. And when I saw Odessa act, I just knew there was just something that felt just so right. First of all, the first time I saw her, she was in Shirley facing Elizabeth Moss, and literally before I saw the film, I was like, oh, she's gonna get eaten alive. It's gonna be painful to watch.
I still did.
No, like you were just like right there at the same level, and that just blew my mind. It was just like to see such capacity for strength and her capacity for vulnerability. That was exactly the balance that I was looking for, and that was required for like a female writer. You have this very strange thing. I know quite a few female writers, they have this very strange thing where they're the most vulnerable, raw people on earth, but they're so strong that you couldn't make them move by an inch. And Odessa is like this in real life.
Really, yeah, really stubborn, really stubborn, and very emotional.
Odessa, how did you even begin to go about preparing to play Jane? Was there any special research you took on for the time period, and how much, if at all, was the book a resource?
The book was a really, really huge resource in the sense that it provided an internal monologue for Jane, which kind of cut my work down in half. And then in terms of research, honestly, I think that the most important thing to me, the thing that I really wanted to just kind of, pay the most attention to, was kind of trying to really feel and realize how it would have felt in that period of time to have lost so much and so many people, and have the place that you've known always as, maybe a happy place, maybe an average place, maybe an unhappy place, but to have these places suddenly appear to you as ghost towns. And also having to watch, in terms of Jane's perspective, having to watch people that, she cares for, as is her job, go through that loss as well, having been born with no one to care for. So, I guess it was just kind of really trying to understand the devastation of the war and of the Spanish flu, and just how alien the world must have felt after that. I think that was kind of the only real research that I did, aside from like, what does a maid eat for breakfast, and those little things.
What does a maid eat for breakfast?
A little piece of toast, plain toast, no butter, and a glass of water, maybe some tea from the night before. My research.
I'm curious if you had ever done anything in this time period before, because I don't think you have, but at the same time, you're British, so I'm kind of surprised you haven't.
I'm actually Australian, but
Australian. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's like
no, it's fine. It's actually a really good sign, because that means that my accent was somewhat believable.
Yes.
But no, I hadn't done anything specifically 1910s, 20s. Shirley was, ambiguously the 40s. And then, some other decade, I've done some other decades, but yeah, that period was new to me. And it was really, it was really fun. I think ultimately you know, the only thing that really changes are the kind of catalysts for the plot being historical facts and the costumes and the accents. But in terms of kind of the soul of these movies, I think that, you know, the human soul doesn't change so much over the course of time. We all experience loss and love, and you know, I think that's, yeah, that was kind of the linchpin.
Eva, how did you go about recreating this period? Because it looks so beautiful and meticulous. And I believe you kind of had to do it on a budget in a pandemic.
Yeah, don't tell me about this. You know, that was definitely a challenge for me because I'm not British, obviously. So I had to rely a lot on my production designer, Helen Scott. And sometimes, you know, for example, the tasting colors and such, it's interesting how cultural it is and how different in time it is also. And sometimes the colors of the 1920s were not exactly my taste. So I had to sort of like cross the bridge between personal preferences and historical accuracy. And Helen was really amazing because she was really such a trooper, but on my end, it was not very easy in the sense that I had to, you know, lead a whole team via Zoom to start with, you know, people I had never met. And believe me, when you're a director, like some of your strong points come through the fact that you meet people. There's a lot of human connection that goes into this work. So masks and Zooms are not, you know, like very conducive to a fluid, you know, working setup. So I found that really hard. I found it really hard that, you know, when I accepted the job, initially London was on the other side of the train from Paris, and, you know, like I could come back home, and then suddenly, you know, like everybody was cut out from everybody, and like it was, I'm just saying this because it's important for us all to remember the impact that the pandemic has had on the working conditions and the work conditions, and how much has an impact on everything else. So, you know, working on the time period was not just like, you know, going through history books and like talking with your production designer. It's just like carrying everything else also. But in terms of color schemes, I was very much inspired by the autochromes, like the first photographic processes, where red had a very prevalent importance, and I thought that was really, really interesting, like the skin colors and the red. And I wanted as much as possible to get close to the relationship people of the time had with color, and not necessarily our perception of it from the historical pictures, the period pictures I grew up with. They were just, you know, very subdued and very conventional. I think that it was very interesting to sort of like go for the modernity of what the 1920s were and what the character is. The 1920s, you know, like there's a reason why it's roaring 20s and it's the surrealists, you know. A lot of people of that time were trying to break ground and trying to just move forward and just like see beyond the absolute, you know, desolation that war was. I mean, you know, it's postmodernism. And that's what the movie is. It's very postmodernist, even in the structure and in the narrative, you know, like the fragmentation, the hyper fragmentation of it.
I would love to talk about the rest of your amazing cast, because you have everyone from Olivia Colman to Colin Firth to obviously the great Josh O'Connor. I'd love to know about casting Glenda Jackson as the older Jane. I mean, that's an amazing coup. And Odessa, at what point did you know you would be sharing a character with Glenda?
I think that was like, I think that we'd started shooting before she was confirmed, right? So it was pretty, you know, yeah, it was, we were already kind of well on our way to making the movie. And I remember thinking, like, if only I'd known this before, I would have been Glenda Jackson for the rest of the movie, because, you know, why not? But yeah, I mean, she's a force of nature.
But I think that's where it's beautiful to have the two of you not caring about each other, but being who you are, because I think you have something in common, which is like being extremely grounded, extremely earthy in that sense of you just do what you do and like you don't give a fuck about anything else. And
This could backfire so easily.
yeah, but in a great way, because it just grounds you and it gives you something that's very similar in the spirit. And then the issue is not you trying to resemble Glenda Jackson or Glenda Jackson, channeling you. Like I was actually surprised, because I was obviously concerned. I was like, how is that going to work? But just something like in the way the eyes sparkle and there's just something that's there that's completely believable for me. She's got, this mischievousness that you do have also, and Glenda, it was just hard because, it was between lockdowns and Glenda was well into her 80s and we had a lot of concerns about her health and like bringing her onto a set. And at the same time, I kept on saying to Liz, the producer, we just need somebody who carries the weight of a formidable career behind her, because she's got literally, I think she's got less than 1 minute on screen, at the end of the day. So she has to appear and she's had this insane career because she carries that. And that's why we got very, very lucky to have her. And I'm just very glad she yelled at me. It's like a badge of honor.
She yelled at you?
Yeah, but she was very funny because she basically offered very graciously to be in front of Odessa when Odessa was giving a look. And I was obsessing over like the way Odessa was looking at her. And it was very cold outside. And at some point, I think she just got impatient, which is completely normal because she's 84. And she was like, this woman is crazy. This is done. Like, she's got her look. And I was like, wait. But she was very gracious. I just love actors and actresses who do that, who they just say what they think, and at the same time they're very professional and they don't bear a grudge on you. And she was just very warm, and she's a force of nature, and I'm sure Odessa is going to be like that when she's old and grumpy.
I'm already grumpy. I've got half of that down.
I also want to talk about Josh because he's one of your primary scene partners. Odessa, did you guys know each other at all prior to filming this? Because the movie hinges so much on your chemistry. I'm curious how you built that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like we messaged each other on social media when we like found out that each other was cast, and it was that was like our only kind of interaction before I got to London and we started rehearsing. And then, I mean, honestly, I think that this is a little bit of Eva's genius as well. Like, her gut knew exactly who he was and who we'd be together. And, I just think that he's a phenomenal actor and he's good at committing to what is required of him. And that made it easy to commit to what was required of me, and what was required of us was chemistry. And so we did it. It's also kind of as simple as that, because I think if two people have a common goal, that does your work for you. That's all chemistry is anyway. And yeah, I hope it worked out. I hear good things about us, so.
Eva, how do you go about preparing your actors for such, not just like, there's some very intimate scenes, but there are also some very emotionally vulnerable scenes. Are you a director who just sort of gets out of their way, or are you really hands-on when those moments are coming?
I mean, that would be more a question for Odessa. I think part of my job happens a lot during the first half hour when I meet the actors, where I try I think I need to connect with the actors on a human level, and I kind of open up, and if the person in front of me shows up, it tells a lot of their capacity to open up on set for me. And I think that's what happened with Josh. I think that's what happened with Odessa, which doesn't mean that afterwards, you don't have to step backwards or whatever, but like when you see that capacity to open up, then there's a sense of trust that really is fundamental for me. And I think I just try to be there for them, and I try to not push them when they need space, and sometimes just gently nudge them. And it's weird, but I really am convinced that part of my job also is to translate the vulnerability of the set onto the rhythm of the edit, because sometimes it doesn't just quite work like that, and you have to give them again like the fluidity that was on set, that you could see on set. So for me, it's a little dance between a personal connection, the fluidity of the set, and then like the edit. But it's really based on trust, and I find it very hard to work with actors that I don't fully trust. And I've been quite lucky on that level, I have to say.
I actually want to bring up the editing process because you have all these different timelines and you're balancing, kind of several stories at once. How much of this film was found in the editing room?
How much, sorry?
Oh, how much of this film was actually found in the editing room?
A lot. A lot, not in a bad way, because it's just typically one of those films that work insanely well at the novel stage, insanely well at the script stage, and it's just not the same writing, the screen, and you have to find your way through it, and you're a little bit like a blind person, just trying to just be very sensitive and like receive the flow. I don't know, maybe I sound mad when I said that, but for me it's a lot about instincts, and like it's a bit of a trance. I believe a lot in trance when I work, when I write, when I direct, when I edit, where you just have to take you by the hand and just like make you dive deep with the material. And sometimes, we would watch the scenes or the succession of scenes, and it's just like there was just something that was not working. We added like a lot of weeks to the edit, because Liz Carlson was smart enough to understand that we just needed whatever time we needed. And we worked really fast, considering there was also the pandemic thing that just made it, it was kind of excruciating. Like Emily and I were in Paris, there was a curfew and a lockdown, and so no social life. Usually, like the way I leave the editing process is I'm depressed all the time, because until like the day the picture is locked, I'm convinced, like it's not working, and like, I'm failing the whole thing, and I have like the world on my shoulders. But then it's also, conversely, it's also the amazing thing about working with people who've known you for so many years. I've worked with Emily for 15 years now. And, sometimes she carries me, sometimes I carry her. And it's like this, it's a real relationship. And she's very much, an author in a way of the film as well, because, when you've got someone who understands your own grammar so much and the actors so well, she's like a doula, she sort of helps giving birth to material. It's very Platonician, it's just like helping giving birth. And that's part of the wonder of the whole process. But we rearranged a lot of the story points, I think mostly in the like middle to last third of the film.
You take the pandemic out of this, you're still capturing grief and trauma and this time period so intimately. I'm curious, what was the atmosphere on set like? Were you able to have any levity?
I've had more fun on other sets, you know. I think everybody was very eager to do their best. I think everybody was quite stressed out by the working conditions, and we didn't have much relief. We could not socialize. We did not see each other's faces, not me and the actors, because at some point I was like, I cannot communicate like what I need to do the job with a mask. So the actors and I were not wearing masks, but like, you know, there's so many things that we missed out on where you sort of see somebody's look or somebody's like smiling and understand what's working well, what's not working well. You know, like I think, and I think, you know, like we had also understood something, do not underestimate English weather. I made a war film in Georgia, and honestly, it was less tough than trying to shoot a sunny film in England.
Odessa, for you?
Like, I had a great time. Like, I feel like it was a party on set every day. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I had a great time. I think that, like, obviously I had far less to deal with than Eva. So that probably contributes to my fun. I don't know. I feel like, you know, when the source material can be so heavy,
Yeah,
it's important to have a bit of fun.
well, again, congratulations on such a beautiful movie, and thank you both so much for being here.